Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I'm gonna review 4 very popular Korean sunscreens which should work for all skin types. Those 4 sunscreens have many things in common. First, they all have the same level of protection, which is of SPF 50, and they cover also UVA protection. They are all fragrance free and they do not contain essential oils either. They are all completely invisible. They all have a light, pleasant texture. They are all easy to apply. And last but not least, all of those sunscreens use the same UV filters. I am talking about the sunscreens from the brands Haruharu Wonder, Anua, House of Hur, and Numbuzin. I decided to put those sunscreens in 2 different categories depending on the type of finish they give. And in the category number 1, I'm putting the Haruharu Wonder Sunscreen and the Anua Sunscreen. I will start with the brand Haruharu Wonder, which has a texture that is a mix of a gel and a cream, but the gel texture is predominant. When you apply it on your skin, the sunscreen penetrates pretty fast, it gets absorbed pretty fast, and the result, the feeling on the skin is a well moisturized skin that leaves on my oily skin a satin finish, which means that it gives a natural finish with a little bit of glow. But within a few hours, I found that this result goes from a little bit glowy to glowy. I bought this sunscreen because I saw some people say that it was great for oily skin, including under makeup. But for me, if you have oily skin, that's not the best. Of course, if you compare this to regular sunscreens, then it is okay, but regular sunscreens are usually bad for oily skin, especially under makeup, so they shouldn't be used as a reference. On its own, it's not enough for me to be called a good sunscreen for oily skin under makeup, unless you have an amazing mattifying base or an amazing mattifying foundation, then maybe you will like it. But for me, although for the first hour it may work, within a few hours the glowy result is too much to be worn under makeup for someone who has oily skin. The second sunscreen in this category is the Anua Sunscreen, which also has a texture that is a mix of a gel and a cream, but here the creamy finish is predominant. And the texture is also lighter, although when you apply it on your skin at first it feels more moisturizing than the previous cream. And when you apply it, it feels almost like a regular moisturizer for the face. When you are done applying on the face, it leaves a light glow on the skin that does not look oily. It looks like my skin with an extra glow, but within a few hours, similar to the previous sunscreen, the finish changes and it goes from light glow to a glowy finish that is still not oily. So for me, because the finish of those 2 sunscreens after a few hours is glowy, that is not something that I can use under my makeup, but I have oily skin. In the winter on its own, I can wear both of those sunscreens. I've had them for a while. I've tested them in spring, summer, fall. And to me, the perfect timing to use those sunscreens is winter, maybe in spring when it's not warm yet, but when it's full spring and especially when it is summertime, I can't wear those sunscreens because they feel too glowy to the point that my skin becomes too greasy. But if you have dry skin, you will probably love those sunscreens in spring and summertime. And in the winter, you can still wear them, but you will have to wear them on top of a moisturizing toner or a moisturizing serum or maybe a regular moisturizer. If you have a normal skin type, you will enjoy these sunscreens the most because you will be able to wear it probably throughout the year, in winter, spring, fall, summer. Maybe in summer, if your skin type changes and becomes more combination, maybe they will become more problematic. But people who have normal skin types will enjoy those sunscreens the most. For the second category of sunscreens, the first one is the sunscreen from the brand Numbuzin. Numbuzin has a mix of a gel and cream texture like Anua, and I can't tell which texture is predominant. For me, it's the same. And when you apply it on the skin, the texture is very interesting and different from all sunscreens I've tried elsewhere. It feels very soft. It feels velvet-like. That's the best description I can give. It's a very pleasant feeling on the skin. It penetrates on the skin and absorbs relatively fast, almost like the Haruharu Wonder. It moisturizes the skin well, and it leaves a satin finish, again similar to the Haruharu Wonder. My skin looks well moisturized, healthy, with a little glow, a little luminosity. And contrary to the Haruharu Wonder, the finish barely changes throughout the hours. So that's what I like about it. I was surprised because the Haruharu Wonder online was often advised for oily skin, while the Numbuzin sunscreen was often advised to dry skin. But my oily skin in the winter benefits from the Numbuzin sunscreen. And in my opinion, the finish is a finish that can work again for all skin types. Depending on the season, everyone should be happy with this sunscreen. I've seen many people online complaining that the sunscreen peels on their skin. I didn't have this experience at all, but it can happen to anyone with any type of sunscreen. I talked about it recently when I reviewed a German sunscreen, and I explained that for me, what works with those sunscreens was to mix the sunscreens into my fingers before applying it on my face, and when I do that, I don't see any peeling. The second sunscreen in this category is the House of Hur Sunscreen, which has a texture that is quite liquid compared to the previous ones. Here you also have a mix of gel and a cream texture that feels this time more like a gel. And when you apply it on the skin, the product absorbs super fast, much faster than the other products. And within a few minutes, if you touch your skin, if you touch your face, it has absorbs completely. The result on the face is like a satin matte finish on my oily skin. And the finish does not change much throughout the hours, so the mattifying finish is there. I can't say that the finish does not change at all because I have oily skin, so of course it's gonna change with the sebum production, but here you can tell that they put something to control sebum production to make sure that the finish regarding oil production does not change that much. And when you look at the ingredient list, you can see that they did not emphasize on hydrating ingredients, and they used a mattifying ingredient in this formula, which is silica. This is the last sunscreen that I bought, so I was only able to use it during fall and winter. I haven't been able to try it in spring and summer yet, but I really hope that they would work in spring and summer. In winter and fall, because it has this satin mattifying effect, I can wear it under my makeup, and that's actually the sunscreen I've been wearing under my makeup for a few months. I really like it, which is why I've already bought another bottle. In the winter, even on my skin, it can feel not moisturizing enough because in the winter, my oily skin becomes a little bit combination around this area. My skin type becomes more like a normal skin type. And I've noticed that with this sunscreen, in the winter, my skin sometimes did not feel moisturized enough, even under my makeup. So what I do is that I use my regular moisturizer in this area first, a little bit of it, and then I apply this sunscreen on top all over my face. On the rest of my face, it is not drying. The little moisture that it has is enough for my oily skin, even in the winter, on the oiliest part of my face. Regarding the Numbuzin sunscreen, the problem I have is that because it was working well on my skin in the winter and in spring, I decided to try it in the summertime as well to see if it would work with my skin in the summertime. And regarding how glowy it was in the summertime, it was definitely too glowy for my oily skin. Spring can work, but not under makeup, but summertime was too much. Which is not so surprising because I have oily skin and finding the perfect sunscreen in the summertime is almost impossible. What bothered me was that the day I tested this sunscreen, I applied a good amount, probably more than I usually apply. I went out. It was full summer in south of France. The UV index was very high. I went out with my mom to do some grocery shopping, but in total, my skin must have been exposed to the sun for no more than 40 minutes. And I'm pushing far when I say 40 minutes. I'm pretty sure it was probably 25 minutes. And when I came back home and I looked at my face in the mirror, I could see that I had tanned, which is normal if I don't have a sunscreen on my face. I can tan super fast in the summer. But normally when I use my favorite sunscreens in the summer, I don't tan that fast. It does not matter if the UV index is super high. If I've applied the right amount and I go out for 1 hour, an hour and a half without reapplying my sunscreen, even if my face is exposed to the sun for 1 hour, I don't see tanning. I will see it on my décolleté, I will see it on my arms, but not my face. So that surprised me and I started to doubt about the level of protection. Obviously, when we buy sunscreens, we can only rely on what brands tell us regarding the level of protection. And unless you try those sunscreens in the summer, and some people may burn too quickly, and some people like me will tan too quickly. A few years ago, there was an issue with a South Korean brand, the brand Purito, which claimed to be SPF 50, but after testing, the result came back as SPF 16 instead. And then people realized that this issue concerned all the South Korean sunscreens. And that's not an issue just in South Korea. Recently, last summer, the Australian brand Ultraviolet also faced the same scandal. So it's not specific or a risk only regarding South Korean brands, but regarding all brands when it comes to sunscreens, because we can't individually test those sunscreens in the lab. We have to trust the brands. And with Numbuzin, I have doubts now, and that's annoying because, as I told you, I really enjoyed it. At least in the winter and spring, I really enjoyed the texture, so I am torn about it. Between Haruharu Wonder and Anua, the sunscreen that I would rebuy would be Anua. I like both texture, but I prefer the Anua texture. And as I said regarding the House of Hur, I've already repurchased it and I will repurchase it again. And I really want to test this sunscreen in the summer and spring to see the finish. But with what I've just told you about Numbuzin, I also want to test this sunscreen in the summer, including Anua, just to see how fast I'm gonna tan. Because if I tan as fast as Numbuzin, I may not buy those sunscreens again. And I have doubts, especially since they use the exact same UV filters, so I'm thinking that maybe they have been made by the same lab. They are from different brands, but they may have been done by the same lab. So I have doubts. I don't know. if you have tried them in the summertime, let me know if you also had concerns or maybe not at all. Let me know in the comment section everything about those sunscreens if you have tried them yourself. I told you everything that I know about those sunscreens, the good, the bad, with no filters at all. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.